weed, kush, loud, grass, Mary Jane, dank. The list goes on and on. Cannabis has a lot of nicknames and a lot of uses, both recreational and medicinal. With the recent legalization of cannabis in California and many other states, more and more people are using it recreationally, but it's also being studied for its medicinal and negative qualities. Now, just to clarify, I'm not arguing for or against cannabis. Rather, I am presenting to you studies and statistics so that you can come to your own conclusion about the use of cannabis. Today, I will be discussing what cannabis is and its positive and negative effects. While many people use cannabis, they don't truly know what they're ingesting or smoking into their body. Simply put, cannabis is a plant containing psychoactive properties. According to countless sources, including the book Cannabis and Cannabinoids, Pharmacology, Toxicology, and Therapeutic Potential, cannabis originated in Central Asia. And as civilizations spread, so did cannabis, resulting in three main types: Cannabis sativa, Cannabis indica, and Cannabis rudulalis. And then for this presentation, I won't be going over rudulalis because for these studies, it's much less impactful and important. So Cannabis sativa grows in warmer, more equatorial regions, and it can be distinguished by its long, thin leaves, and the big spaces in between such leaves, and it's the longest out of the three types. Cannabis indica it grows in colder climates, about 50 to 30 degrees north or south of the equator, and compared to sativa, it grows faster, it's stockier, and it's much shorter. So each type of cannabis contains hundreds of chemical constituents and many cannabinoids, and the two most common cannabinoids are tetrahydrocannabidiol, and that's THC, and then cannabidiol, which is CBD. And THC is the main psychoactive component in cannabis, which creates a high feeling, whereas CBD is a non-psychoactive cannabinoid, and it's more associated with relief in pain or anxiety. And both of these cannabinoids create many different feelings and effects, and they're found in varying levels in each type of cannabis. So for Cannabis sativa, there are low levels of CBD and higher levels of THC, resulting in feelings such as a head buzz, a rush of energy, euphoria, an increase in focus and alertness, and an increase in hunger. And on the other hand, indica has high levels of CBD and low levels of THC, resulting in feelings such as a body buzz, pain relief, drowsiness, hunger, and a relief in anxiety. So now that I've reviewed different types and the components of cannabis, I want to go over the three main forms used. So the most common form is marijuana, and that is dried cannabis flowers and leaves. And typically that is smoked through either a pipe, a bong, bubbler, dab, joint, blunt, or other things. And then the second type is probably less known. It's called hashish. It's right there. And it's more potent. It can be used to make edibles. And then the most important thing about this is that it's used to make the third type, which is hash oil. And hash oil is the most potent out of the three. It could be really dangerous, and it's used in dabs and for vapes. So now that we understand what cannabis is, the different types, and how it's used, I want to go over some of the benefits. So there are many misconceptions about the use of cannabis, but studies prove that it helps with certain symptoms for certain diseases. So 61% of individuals in a double-blind procedure who took high doses of THC saw a 30% reduction in neuropathic pain. And in another test, 47 to 58% of people who took medical marijuana during chemotherapy had improved symptoms of vomiting and nausea. So both of these claims and statistics come from the article Medical Marijuana, Do the Benefits Outweigh the Risks? And this is written by multiple doctors, and it just proves that there are benefits of cannabis. But just like any other form of treatment, it's key to understand that medical marijuana will not cure symptoms, it may result in side effects, and it will not work for everyone. So for another study, according to Therapeutic Benefits of Cannabis, a patient survey that was conducted among medical marijuana users, 50% of people reported a relief in stress and anxiety, 45% of people reported relief in insomnia, 12% reported an increase in improved appetite, 10% a decrease in nausea, 9% increase in focus and concentration, and 7% a relief from depression. So self-surveys aren't the most accurate, and it's impossible to accurately calculate certain levels of like stress and anxiety. And that may diminish some of the statistics, but there are countless case studies and personal reports that stress that cannabis is effective at combating chronic pain and anxiety. And for example, Elizabeth Crew in the article, Medical Marijuana, Does Cannabis Offer Health Benefits?, uses medical marijuana to help cope with her cancer and chronic pain. And she's been living ever since, and she says that it's made her life better. And this just illustrates that compared to opioids and other forms of treatment, medical marijuana and cannabis is safer and less addictive, offering less adverse effects. But you may be wondering, what are some of the adverse effects? Well, on the screen you can see some of them, but overall these adverse effects mostly depend on how much it's being used and the age of the person using it. So for short-term usage, some of the effects are impaired short-term memory, impaired motor coordination, altered judgment, and possible paranoia. And for long-term effects, or usage, the effects are addiction, impaired short-term memory, impaired long-term memory, altered brain development, poor educational outcome, cognitive impairments, and an increased risk in bronchitis or possible psychotic disorders. So according to the article, Adverse Health Effects of Marijuana Use, 9% of those that try marijuana will become addicted, and 1 in 6 teens that try it will also become addicted. And these numbers might not seem that big or like that important, but our brains aren't done developing until we're about 25. So those that would use marijuana under that age would feel these adverse effects much more than someone who is over the age and has a fully developed brain. And to better illustrate this idea, a 2012 longitudinal study of persistent cannabis users showed a neurophysiological decline from ages 13 to 38. And in a meta-analysis, cannabis users perform worse than non-cannabis users on neurophysiological functions such as executive functioning, verbal abilities, learning, cognition, and motor skills. So both of these studies come from the article Effects of Cannabis Use on Human Behavior, Including Cognition, Motivation, and Psychosis, and they highlight the extreme dangers of heavy cannabis usage. But even scarier is how, according to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, from the article Highly Potent Weed Has Swept the U.S. Market, Raising Concerns About Health Risks, the potency of THC in cannabis products has increased from 4% in 1995 to 12% in 2014 to 17.1% in 2017. This massive 300% increase in THC has resulted in cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, and that results in severe abdominal pain and vomiting. So this is just really alarming because THC levels are only continuing to rise, and doctors and scientists know that this will result in even worse adverse effects. But but they believe that it will result in even worse ones that we have no idea about. So that's why there's much research currently being conducted about cannabis usage and the abuse of it. So, in conclusion, cannabis has many impactful benefits for those who need relief from therapeutic or medical problems, but there is a danger in abusing it because there is a lot of negative and adverse effects. So just like anything, cannabis may be good in moderation and when needed. And however, there's still a lot to learn about cannabis that we don't know, which is why there's much research being conducted. And furthermore, due to increasing THC levels, students and specifically younger adults and teenagers need to be more informed about what they're ingesting into their body, how to safely use cannabis, and the potential adverse effects that happen when they abuse it. Thank you.
Okay, Perry, how'd that go?
Thought it went okay. I know when I was I had a lot of practice, a long time. And I know when I did practice, it would always be a little overtime.
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else besides knowing it was just a little overtime?
I think I talked a little fast at some points, and it was hard for me to. There's some long words in there, and I had a lot of articles and studies that I was trying to get out, but that was a little difficult. But I think I did okay.
Okay. All right. Audience, if you could.
Okay.
Like your structure, it was very clear when you're moving on to the next subject. It made it easy to follow.
I thought it flowed well, and it definitely showed that you had a good amount of time to prepare with that accurate. It's you didn't need to look down at your notes too much. I would watch it back because you had a few speech fillers, but besides that, it was good.
You're able to just cover a lot of information, like back, like you said. way you laid it out made it possible.
Thank you.
Okay, Perry, my turn. First of all, I would agree. I think your structure was quite clear in terms of laying it out. I wasn't sure though, in your introduction, you had mentioned for your preview what it was, the positive and negative effects, and then it felt like in the body of your speech you added the types and how it's used. And I didn't know if that was all inclusive in what it is, or if they were separate points. So it's really kind of just a little bit of a language thing to just kind of clear that up.
Okay.
That's all. So just make sure they match is all that I'm saying. Okay. I thought, but to that end, I thought you did a nice job of the way that you structured it. So you talked about what it was, you talked about the different types of it, and then you talked about its use. So that was kind of nice and cleanly laid out. Really nicely done. And then the positive and negative effects. What you did really, really well was keep us on track with where you were throughout the speech, which was really quite nice. I appreciated the images that you had in the first half of them. The second half of the speech ended up going into lists of information on your slides. What I might have done is on a couple of different occasions you gave us some statistics, and I might have actually just graphed the statistics. That would have been sufficient with the different types of some of those things that people were experiencing and whatnot, to the degree that they feel them and that sort of thing. If you have access to that, right? If you have access to that data, it just makes it kind of match the presentation throughout. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay, I thought you were quite conversational. I would say that you did pretty well looking everywhere. Sometimes it was just you and me though. So just make sure you kind of get to everybody. Interestingly enough, you cited a statistic, and I was like, uh-oh, where'd that come from? And then you cited another statistic, and then you said, and both of those came from this source. That was a nice way to do it. I think sometimes we oftentimes feel like we have to say, according to, da-da-da-da-da. But the way that you sort of blended that in, I thought worked effectively, so that you're not repeating it over and over and over again. So I compliment you. I hear that as a compliment. Please. Let's see. The other thing is I would have the computer closer. So I would move that a little closer. Or get a mouse so that you don't have to, so you're not walking to advance your slides. That would be it. That's it. That's what I got.